Hello to everyone. My name is Sandeep, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Information Technology of MLR Institute of Technology, Hyderabad. So previously we discussed about that functions, how to define the functions, how can we call the functions, and the type of arguments. So then we can define the functions using the def keyword, and also different types of arguments, that is formal arguments and actual arguments. So and again we have the different types of actual arguments, that is also we discussed with each and every type with an programmatical example. So here if we revise just about that functions concept, the functions defines what? A block of statements which is used to perform a task. In Python we can use or we can define the functions using def keyword, and then we have two types of arguments. One is formal arguments and second one is actual arguments. And the formal arguments is nothing but whenever we are going to define the function, at that time if you are going to pass the parameters, that is called formal arguments. And then we have that actual arguments, then whenever we are calling the function, at the time of we are going to pass the values to the function parameters or function arguments, that is called actual arguments. Again we have four types of actual arguments, so that is also we discuss. Now after that we have one function which is anonymous function. So today we'll discuss that is anonymous function. This is the overview, anonymous functions, and we have the advanced functions, that is filter function and map function, right? So first we will see anonymous function. What is this anonymous function? Right, anonymous means unknown. That means a function, generally we are going to define the functions by using def keyword. For example, like this one here, we had the function name, that is m1, but this anonymous functions is nothing but the function without a name. The function defining without a name is called anonymous function. A function without a name is called anonymous functions. Is called anonymous functions. So that is called, then here these anonymous functions is also known as lambda functions. This anonymous functions is also known as lambda functions. Why we are going to call these functions as lambda functions means because of we are going to define that anonymous functions using lambda keyword. Using lambda keyword. Yes, for example here see, we are going to print a statement, that is hello, using m1 function. Now here we create a function, that function having a name, that is m1, and then we are going to print that hello whenever we are going to call this statement. But now here see, we have to print the same statement using function but without name, without going to give the name to that function. So how means, this is the syntax, lambda argument list expression. But here simply see lambda, okay, if for this function we are not going to pass any arguments, that's why here we did not declare any arguments, and then print statement, and then print statement. Now that statement is assigned to this function, and we are going to give this lambda function a name, that is a, and then by using this name we are going to call that one. Okay, so let me see an example, right? See, first we'll see def m1 function and then print hello, print hello. So double quotations, print hello, and then m1 is calling, and then m1 is calling. Now see, we'll run this program, right? So python dot sample, file name is sample, right? Sorry, python space sample dot py. What is that one? Hello. Here, but this function is what? Normal functions, because of this function having name. But now we are going to execute this same output using lambda functions or using anonymous functions that functions don't have any name. Now see, you then use that lambda keyword, and for this function there is no argument list. Then statement print hello. Okay, print hello. Right, now all these things we are going to assign to the like a, like this one. Okay na? So now by using that name we are going to give that name, that is a. Now we'll execute this program. See, we'll get that same output. We'll get what? Same output. So in this way we are going to define the anonymous functions. So anonymous functions defines using which keyword? Lambda keyword. Which keyword? Lambda keyword. And assign, and after then we are going to give the name or assign to a object, that is anything, that may be A or that may be B. By using that name we have to call. By using that name we have to call. So that is called anonymous functions, right? So let me see that syntax right here. This is the actual syntax: lambda and then argument list and then expression. Okay, lambda, argument list. Sir, we can say here we don't have any parameters, that's why we did not pass any arguments list. But for your function, if any arguments list are there, then after lambda expression, then you can pass here the arguments and then expression, or you can say statement. So this is the syntax of the anonymous function. Next, we have some advanced functions. There is an filter function, map function. Filter function, map function. First we will discuss about this filter function. What is this filter function? The filter function in Python takes in a function and a list as arguments. Okay, that means the function, so this filter function are going to pass as a parameter to other function, and these filter function are going to take the argument, that arguments is list. That arguments is list. That means, for example, m1 function is there. Okay, in this m1 function we are going to pass the filter function as an argument. Now m1 function as an argument we are going to pass the filter function. Now these filter function, in this filter function we are going to pass the arguments as, that is list. That is list. Okay, for example like this one. So this filter function is what? First, the filter function are going to takes as a parameter to other function, and these filter function having arguments, that arguments is as list. Anyway, now we'll see the purpose. This offers an elegant way to filter out all the elements of a sequence. Here see, we are going to pass the argument, that argument is a list, that may be a set, or sometimes that may be a dictionary, or sometimes that may be a foreign set, or sometimes that may be a string, anything, but the argument must and should be sequence type. Which argument? Whatever we are going to pass into the filter function. Okay, so whatever we are going to pass to the filter function, that function we required, that function arguments is required sequence type. Sequence type. Now see, in that sequence, for example, we are going to pass the list. That list is 10. For example, here you see 10, 23, 40, 53, 54. Now by using filter function, okay, by using filter function we are going to filter the elements, that is which is even number or which is odd number, which is even number, which is odd number, or sometimes which is prime number, or sometimes some other filters we had based on the application requirements. Anyway, filter function taking the arguments is what? One is sequence and second one is function. Second one is function. So here the example see. First we'll discuss about the filter function using normal functions. Here m1, this is which function? M1 function, and into that M1 function we are going to pass the parameter, that is x. Now whatever the value we pass the parameter, whatever we are going to pass the value into the x, that is has to be divided by with 2, and here the modulus operator is there, so that's why this returns what? Remainder. So whenever a number is divided by 2, then the remainder is 0, then that is what? Even number. That means returns true. If a number is divisible by 2 and the remainder returns as non-zero value, then it returns false. It returns false. Okay, now here the list. So now what will be happen? See, now filter function, into the filter function what we pass? M1 function. What we pass? M1 function, and then list. That means these list elements are going to pass the parameters to the M1 function. To the M1 function. And then filter, then from that we will get the values, that is which is divisible by 2. Which is divisible by 2. See, let me see an example, right? So def M1 function, and we are going to pass the parameter. Now if x modulus 2 equals to 0, equals to 0, then return true. Return true. Else return false. Okay, so return false. Okay, now we have to create a list. Okay, now list equals to 10, 20, 30, 33, 20, 34, 45, and then 66, 68. 68. Now see, here also the same example. Same example here we are going to what? Discussing. See, same example. Here whenever x is divisible by 2 and it gets the remainder as 0, then the condition is true and returns true. Whenever it returns true, then what will be happen? See, what will be happen? First, in the list of elements, okay, whatever the elements are there in the LST object or LST variable, that elements are going to pass to the M1 function. First, 10 value will be there. 10 modulus divided by, so 10 modulus 2 equals to 0, s returns true. Whenever it returns true, then the filter function will collect that element or collect that object and assign to LST1 variable. Okay, and that means any value gets the remainder is 0 when that value is divided by 2. That values will be filtered from the list. That values filtered from the list. That value is filtered from the list. So once again I will tell you, whatever the elements are present in the LST object, that elements are going to, that each and every element are going to pass as an argument to the M1 function. In M1 function, whenever that whenever a number returns true, that number will get by the filter. That means whatever the elements present are there in LST, that elements are, that numbers are, which numbers are going to get the true statement or true value, then that filter function, are going to filter the values. For example, here 10 will get the 0, 10 will get the state that is true, and 40 will get the true, and 54 will get the true. So now whatever the values are returning the true value, that values will be filtered. By using which function? Filter function. Okay, by using filter function. See here, filter function. Within this filter function, we pass that M1 function and then list. Now, whatever the elements, that elements are going to printed in list format. That's why we use what? List function. That means we are going to convert that values into the list type. That's why we are going to use the list function. Okay, now see, right? So here, else, right? So next, now filter function. So filter function, into the filter function we have to pass function and then sequence. What is the sequence name here? List, right? Now that result has to be get into the list type. Okay, na? The output will be displayed in the list type. That's why we are going to pass this function into the list function. Now whatever the result came after filtering the values, that values are going to store into the another variable. Okay, na? Same example, right? See, now we are going to print that elements. Print LST1. I save this program. So let me run this one. See, yeah, return. So just a minute. Here we got what? Yes, indentation is missed. Now indentation is given. Once again I save this program. So running this one. What happened? 10, 34, what? 66, 68. So those value returns true value. That values are filtered. By using which function? Filter function. For that filter function, what is the arguments? Function is one argument and sequence is other argument. The sequence may be a list, maybe a string, maybe a set, maybe any whatever the sequence types are there we have in Python. That sequence we can pass as an argument. So this is about what? Filter function. And here the filter function is discussed by using what? Normal functions. By using normal functions. Now we are going to discuss this filter function using lambda functions, which is anonymous functions. That means the functions don't have the name. Now see, first I define the list, that is sequence. Here the sequence type is list, 10, 23, whatever the values are there. Now see, simply here what is the argument we are going to pass that M1 function? Here only one argument, that is x. So what is the syntax of the anonymous functions? Lambda argument list and then what is that one? Expression. And then expression. Now see here, lambda, what is the argument list? X. Now expression. What is the expression? Okay, na? X modulus 2 equals to 0. Now next, this is the expression. Then what we had? That list. Right? So now we are going to pass this one into the filter functions. Okay, na? So in this way we are going to use these lambda functions. So here the lambda function is nothing but what? That function having don't name, and we can pass the lambda. The main purpose of the lambda functions is we can pass a function as a parameter to other functions. That is the main purpose of the lambda functions, or we can say anonymous functions. So the main purpose of lambda functions or anonymous functions is what? We can pass a function as a parameter to other functions or into the another functions. That is the main purpose of the lambda functions. Here see, lambda argument list is only one argument, that's why that is x, and x modulus 2 equals to 0. that means which is whatever the sequence elements are there are present in this LST, that elements has to be computation here. That is, for example, 10 modulus 2, yes, it returns true. That value what are going to store into this lambda, and then by using filter function, which values are getting the true value, that values will be filtered, and then that elements or that values will be print into the list type, okay na? So now we'll see. So here also see that whatever the filtered values are present in which type, filtered, so list type only, right? Say list type, right? Now see the same program now using what, lambda functions. Now 10, 22, 33, 46, 76, 78, 79. Now lambda, filter function, right? So we'll write in second line, filter function lambda, argument list is x, and then expression, right? X modulus 2 equals to 0. Then we have to pass the list, okay na? So now see here, now this filter function I am going to pass into the list function, one more parenthesis we require, and then whatever the result is came, I am going to store into the one variable, that is LST1, and then print LST1. I save this program and I will run this one, see, right? So filter function, yeah, here one important is, yeah, I need to explain here why that error is came. What is the error? Was never closed. See here that filter function is not closed, right? See, no need here, I'm sorry. Right? So right now see 10, 22, 46, 76, 78. So these elements are getting the true values. So which values returns the true, that values will be filtered. That is called filter function. Right? So we use that filter function by using one normal function and then lambda functions. Next there is one more function, that is map function, right? So the map function applies a given function to each item of an iterable like a list or tuple and returns an iterator that produces the result. Simple, right? For example, through an example we'll discuss that one. Here see, first that map function with the normal functions. What is this map function means? For example, here the sequence type is list. I pass some elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now whatever the elements are present in this one, these elements has to be squared. That means the map function are going to manipulate that elements. Are going to manipulate the elements. So that's why here and returns an iterator that produce the results. See, for example, now the list elements are passed to the M1 function. Now in this M1 function, whatever that elements are there. For example, first is 1. So 1 into 1, it returns what? 1 only. So that will be there. Next, 2 into 2, 4. So just a map function is what? Manipulating that elements. Manipulating what? Elements. Now we'll see an example. See, def M1 function and argument is only 1 and then return x into x and return x into x. Okay. Now I am going to pass list So 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5. Now map function, into the map function, what is the, we have to pass function and then sequence arguments. What is the function name? M1. What is the sequence name? LST. Okay. Now whatever the manipulated elements has to be converted into the list type, and then we are going to store that elements, whatever the manipulated elements, using map function, this one. Okay. Now see, print LST1. Okay. Now I save. I am going to run this program. See, 1 4 3 3s 9, 4 4s 16, 5 5s 25. So whatever the elements are manipulated, that elements will be get into the LST1. So this is using what? Normal function. Now we had what? Lambda function. Right? Let's see the same thing but lambda function. So what will be happen? Lambda and then argument list and then expression. Argument list, expression. Right? So let me see through an example. Right? First, LST equals to 10, 20, 30, 40. Only 4 elements are there. Right? Now map function and then lambda x. Okay na? Lambda x, that is argument list. Now expression x into x and then sequence. And then sequence. Now see, right? Now I am going to convert the result into the list type only. Right? Now after getting the result, I am going to assign into the some variable, that is LST1. Now print LST1. I save this program. Right? Now see what happened. 10 squares, 10 into 10, 100, 20 into 20, 400, 30 into 30, 900, and 40 into 40, 1600. So this is about what? Map function with lambda function as well as normal functions. So filter function is used for what? Filtering the elements based on the specified logic. Similarly, map function. Map function is used what? Manipulate that elements based on the specified whatever that expression. Right? So that is what about filter function and map function. Now see here, map function is applies a function to each element in the iterable and returns the transformed result. That means manipulate that result. Okay, na? That means for manipulate that elements and that whatever that manipulated elements, it will be print and produce the result. Right? Next, filter function is what? So here the filter function returns what? Boolean value. That means which true or false. For example, which elements returns the true value, that element will be filtered by using filter function, and which element returns false, that elements are not going to filter that function. See here, when the filter function returns, when the filter function are going to filter that elements, means where that elements returns true or where the functions returns true. So that is called filter function and map function. So here the filter function filters the elements whenever the value that returns is true. Return value is true. Similarly, the map function is used to manipulate the elements. Right? So that is about what? Advanced functions. And also here lambda functions is there, which is anonymous functions. That anonymous function is nothing but what? A function without having a name, and that anonymous functions are going to defined using lambda keyword, and then there is a syntax. Right? So we discussed about that syntax. So this is about map function, filter function and anonymous functions. Right? Thank you.